This is SciByte, episode 126, for April 15th, 2014. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast, live on a Tuesday and fresh on a Wednesday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, Heather, happy science to you.
Happy science.
So, Heather, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, we're going to take a look at a new treatment for paralysis, spying a possible exomoon, troubles with the space station, viewer feedback, the Large Hadron Collider, curiosity news, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
That sounds like a big show. Why don't we kick it off with the news? Okay, Heather, where are we starting tonight?
There is now the belief that in the past, there is the belief that there is no recovery possible from complete paralysis when permanent damage has been done to the spinal cord. That belief is no more.
Oh.
4 young men who had been paralyzed for at least 2 years are now able to move their legs as a result of some epidural electrical stimulation. Now, it's on the spinal cord. Now, this type of thing, don't think of it as like hot wiring where they're actually sending pulses to the leg muscles themselves.
Okay.
It's just not that. It's you apply stimulation to the spinal cord, but essentially what's happening is, what they've kind of discovered is that there's some signals. You think leg move, and the signal goes down to your leg to, for your left leg to kick. And, for young men, it wasn't, their leg obviously wasn't moving. And so what they were able to do is sort of assume that there's a little bit of that signal going out. So with that electrical stimulation, what they're able to do is sort of amplify the signal. So they amplified it, and they can actually, move toes, ankles, kick their leg. Now, they'd had one of these fellows actually was able to, that's included in this, was back in 2011, when they showed the first participant that was actually able to show positive for this. And now the next 3 gentlemen all showed it. Now, they range from everything from absolutely no sensation below the point of injury to some sensation but no movement. Now, for the second, the third, and the fourth, these recent 3, they were immediately able to do voluntary movements. Once they activated the stimulant, once they turned it on, they were immediately being able to move their legs. Now, wow. So this is like really rewriting some of the stuff that they had assumed about spinal cord injuries. And the fact that it's 4 out of 4 now is giving them even more hopeful. Now they're really looking to step it up a notch to see, where it can stop. So it's interesting to kind of see what's going to happen. And so, it's interesting because they're able to amplify the signal. There was a signal there. So that's what I found interesting, is that they're not,
right. It's not generating an entirely new signal. It's just taking one that, which I guess so then it would mean that success would depend on how much of that signal exists.
Yeah. Well, they thought that no signal was there, but apparently there's something. And the fact that actually all 4 of them are actually able to bear weight independently on their legs now. So, this is crazy. The fact that they can do this obviously offers some hope for, walking is extreme, physical therapy that's going on with these guys. But not only that, but it increases, their muscle mass. It can help with blood pressure, fatigue, overall sense of well-being. There's a lot of other additional things that are going on that really makes it interesting and even more helpful for these guys. Now, because of this, they're continuing to be very cautiously optimistic on this side of things. But it opens up these fields of study and treatment plans that are far different from anything else in the past. Being able to say, wow, that this treatment, there's 6 million Americans living with paralysis, 1.3 with spinal cord injuries. So being able to say, hey, well, right now it's 100%. Even if it goes to 25 to 50, to any smaller degree, if it's a chunk of those people, then it would be amazing if they could help increase their quality of life.
Right.
In so many different ways. Now...
And with different ranges of results, but like you said, any results, it would be incredible.
Yeah, all of them were able to, move somewhat. Now, it's the first gentleman who had surgery in 2011 that is now sort of really really bearing weight and kind of getting towards walking and things like that. But, is so much well-being. And so now they're kind of looking to, maybe up it up to the next step where it's, 20 to 50 people, and really kind of ramp these kind of tests up to say, okay, well, so far it's really excellent results. They're right, they see results right away. Things are going okay. And really hoping that this continues. It offers so much hope.
Right. And it seems kind of incredible as electronics get down to the kind of size where you can do these kinds of things, because it requires that embedded piece, right? So it's an interesting way where when technology gets down to the right kind of size and portability and power, the new kinds of things they can try to apply it to, and it's just absolutely amazing. It also, in some ways, makes me feel like the body really is just another machine. Like you can hook up an external battery pack to the wiring and help send some signals. It's just like it makes you kind of think that there's all kinds of amazing things that are around the corner as technology gets more portable and more powerful, and as they figure out ways to wire it into the body to solve problems like this.
Oh, yeah. Like, I had read this, and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And then I saw the video. If you're not watching the show, definitely go check out the videos, because it's really amazing where, that guy, really moves his leg very tremendously.
Yeah.
It was, one of the stories was they turned it on for the first time, and, the guy, hadn't been able to move his leg in years, and his mom's in the same room, and they're like, all right, we're doing the test. Now turn it on. Now, left leg kick. And he says, all right, this is not going to work. And blam, right away. And he's trying to realize what exactly happened. He looks at his mom just crying.
Wow.
And it's one of these things where it's so amazing. And you really, being able to see that and being able to read the personal, really hits you too.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, that's a terrific story. And it's exactly the kind of stuff I can't wait to hear more about in the future.
Yeah.
And did you say how the Christopher Reeve Foundation is tied into this?
It's through, I believe they're doing some of the funding for the research.
Oh, okay.
They have a lot of different research programs going on, and so hopefully it will continue and show even better results, and in the future there will be even happier SciBytes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Heather, well, why don't we take a quick little break, because we got something really fun coming up that I want to tell folks about. Just plant a little seed. Maybe you can clear the calendar, because coming up towards the end of April, just a couple of weeks away, April 26th and the 27th, I think that's the last weekend of April, we'll be in Bellingham, Washington at Linux Fest Northwest, and if everything goes as planned, we'll be streaming all of that. So I don't know how much will go as planned, but if it all does, there could be content all weekend long on the jblive.tv stream, but there will also be a roundup video and stuff like that. So you can always kind of get a glimpse of what we're working on by going over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And when we do kind of special events and stuff like that, we try to put it on there as well. And I think it's going to be a great fest. They're celebrating their 15th year, and we don't usually bring the whole production out of the studio and move it up somewhere, but we're doing it for Linux Fest Northwest, so it's a big event. And I hope you guys can join us. All right, Heather, why don't we move on to the News Bite? Now, what's this rumor about Exomoon? What is this about? I say no way.
I say question mark skeptical science.
Okay, all right, well,
There is something
I'll
there.
entertain it.
There is something there. NASA-funded researchers have actually spotted the first signs of what they say might be an exomoon, although it's impossible to confirm its presence. So what happened is
Until we
that,
can warp there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. It's how we spied it in the first place.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things where it was completely by chance. Can only really see it once because it's as it passes in front of the star. You get this gravitational microlensing. Its light is bent around, light actually bends around gravity. Gravity can bend it a little bit. So as something massive passes in front of something else, you can actually see some changes in how it looks.
Yeah, okay.
And what they actually are able to spy free-floating planets this way. While they know that there are just planets out there roaming the galaxy without a star. And in this case, they saw an additional little spike, either right before it or right after it. And that was highly indicative of possibly a moon. It's about 2,000 to 1 ratio, about how big and what kind of a difference in size there is.
2001, okay.
2,000 to 1. Yeah, that I'd have to be careful. But so they expect that there might be more things like this, but in this specific case, it's only one observation. It's not like it's going to be passing in front of this star ever again, or necessarily another star. So
we can't really do much with it?
We can't do any follow-up observations.
Oh.
But this does mean that, hey, we saw something like this once.
Yeah.
Everybody check your data. Everybody kind of keep watching for something like this to happen.
Right.
I mean, this is how we've discovered, as I said, dozens of exoplanets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now they can go look at the data and say, okay, well, is there other instances of this happening?
Yeah, I mean, we see that there's, Jupiter-sized things floating around space. Now, it might be, a moon around one of those, free-floating planets. Now, it also might be a low-mass pair of...
Spaceships.
No.
Okay.
A star. Like twin stars where it's something very, very small.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different things. And, of course, without any... you can't tell how far away it is. Without that being able to know, then there's no really way to know kind of how far or how big or how massive. Much more details than that. If you look at... use some parallax. So it's, if you hold your finger, 6 inches in front of your face and you look with your left eye and you look at your right eye, it seems to move. Now using that, you can look from different parts of the Earth, or, from one side of the Earth to the other using telescopes at the exact same time, or close to the same time. Then you can, just that little bit difference in the angle of what you're looking at can give you a better idea of how far away something is. Mm. But without that, they can't really tell how far away it is, so it's kind of hard to say much more of the details about it. But there is definitely something there. It was definitely floating, orbiting around something else. So it's an interesting conundrum that will happen again. Somebody else might find it in their data. Somebody else might find it in the near future, or specifically be on the eye. Keep an eye out for such things that might happen. So,
very interesting, Heather. Well, we'll look for future data blips. But in the meantime, I want to bring the band in so that way we can do the 2-byte news. Come on, guys. All right, Heather, what are we talking about in the 2-byte news?
All right, Friday night, April the 11th. A backup computer on the exterior of the space station, called a Multiplexer-Demultiplexer, was not responding to commands. Now there's primary computers, all safe, crew safe, no immediate damage, no immediate change in operations. It was just a backup computer. And they found it sort of during a routine health check. Now this is kind of the thing that... it controls the robotic mobile transporter.
Okay.
And also the radiators, the space that move the space station's solar arrays, some other things. So without the backup, then you work in a totally different mental state.
Well, is this the story I heard where they thought they were going to have to do a spacewalk to fix?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely one that they're going to have to take a spacewalk to fix it.
Oh, they do have to?
They will have to. It is scheduled.
Wow.
The timing of it is completely in the air right now, simply because the Dragon spacecraft, SpaceX, is planning to go up to the space station. Would be Wednesday tomorrow, being from the show being aired, with hopefully it will launch on time and get up there because it has an extra spacesuit and some backup parts to the spacesuits. Because right now, because of a problem on one of the spacesuits last November, I believe.
Wow.
There was an extremely dangerous position where
the water.
There was a water leak into the helmet. An astronaut nearly drowned on a spacewalk. So there was completely, sort of the red line of only absolutely, life-threatening. Do they get to actually go out? They're waiting for these spare parts to come in, so they can fix the suits and maybe even use the new one, and they'll check out the new one, use something to be able to go out.
This is why we need robots to do this work. What?
They sort of were prepping. There's some robotic arms that are used to, grasp the Dragon spacecraft when it arrives so they can kind of pull it in. So in preparation for everything coming up, they made sure that they wanted to be as good as they could if the primary computer should fail. So the angle of the sun right now is good, so they made the solar panel so that it would be good for a couple of weeks. They went ahead and did, they moved the arm that was going to grab the Dragon spacecraft. They moved it all the way down there. They sort of made a couple of ideas like, okay, we need the main computer to do this, this, and this. Let's prep all of those things in the right place in case things start going funny.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll be able to launch and everything will be okay. Otherwise, it'll be another couple days before they can actually try and launch. And then the spacewalk really will depend upon when that gets there after they've done thorough testing on the spacesuits.
Seems reasonable.
Yep. And a girl from the chat room asked if they still use jetpacks. The jetpacks are there. However, on the space station, they don't particularly use them to best of my knowledge. It's all, strapped to the space station, or the arm can actually help. They'll kind of strap their feet to a platform on the arm, and then reach that out so that you can, or strap a part of themselves to that, and then reach that out so they could be tethered to something stable while they do any work. Most of it's on the skin of the spacecraft. So,
but they do have jetpacks.
I don't know if they have any on the space station itself.
I want a jetpack.
You and a jetpack. Everyone wants a jetpack.
So Heather, this next thing on the SciByte 2000, the buttons that get moved around.
Oh no!
This will either release the omega particles that have been harvested from the Delta Quadrant into the atmosphere of this Earth, or it's viewer feedback. Let's find out. Oh, okay, good. We have an incoming transmission. Good, because one omega particle would wreak havoc. So I don't want to even tell you what a whole bunch would do. So what is our feedback?
It is, right before the start of the show, I mentioned the failing for the lunar eclipse that I had.
Mm-hmm.
The first lunar eclipse was April the 15th, which is today. And I thought, of the film recording, I thought, hey, I'll tell everybody. Except I didn't look at the time where it said, 2 a.m. So last night, hopefully you were able to check my Twitter, JB_Mars_base, and I actually was able to remember and tweet out some stuff about where to be able to see that. But don't worry, no golf from the chat room. You sent this in, and the reason why this is so awesome is because this is part of what they call a tetrad, which means there were going to be 3 more in the next year and a half.
What?
Yes, lunar eclipses are generally at least 2 a year. Now, they don't necessarily come in any specific order. There's a couple of different types. Penumbral, which means it barely hits the outskirts of the Earth's shadow. Oftentimes, you don't even notice it. a partial eclipse, kind of as it says, where you see part of the moon into the Earth's shadow, and then a total eclipse where it goes there, and they call it the quote blood moon.
Yeah,
and
okay.
It's because the light reflecting through it is like all the sunrises and sunsets of the world that are happening at that time.
That's pretty cool.
So that's the light that's hitting the moon at that point. So it's going to be this color of that, which is oftentimes red. But it's not. Occasionally they happen like this, where it will be a number of them all in consecutive order. Now, during the 21st century, there were 9 of these. So it's more frequent than you might imagine, but between 1600 and 1900, there were none. So it kind of comes in sort of batches.
Ah, so we got lucky.
Yes, so this is one of those where it's not necessarily happening all the time, but definitely you'll be able to see these. And next time, I will remember to say actually before, because they will check the time. Because some of us don't like 2 a.m. unless we're really trying or staying up.
Yeah.
But the next one will be in October, I believe. So, yep, October 8th. You can click your calendar, or I will actually remember on October the minus whatever date before, as I noted in my calendar. But
I have. That's all right. I have. If we're saying sorry, I have a sorry. I didn't get Solarium loaded today for the show. I just realized that, so I just want to say apologize in advance for that.
That's okay.
But that's a good feedback, and thanks for sending that in. If you want to get a hold of the SciByte show, go over to JupiterBroadcasting.com, click the contact link, and choose SciByte from the drop-down. Or, like Heather mentioned, if you follow her on the Twitters, or you can even just read her feed without following, you get little science tidbits like that, also schedule information, and all those kinds of goodies. JB_Mars_base on the Twitter. But I think we got ourselves an update. Oh, what is our update, Heather?
The Large Hadron Collider. It is starting up again.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, so right after the Higgs boson discovery was going on, it was scheduled for a shutdown for some updates, some upgrades to some of their software and hardware. So they had to start shutting it down, which takes a while. You have a very large piece of equipment that is, you have to have everything cooling at a specific rate. You have to have the energies. There's so many different things that have to be done very slowly as it goes down. Then they had to replace all the hardware, and now they're bringing it back. They're starting it back up into position. Now it'll probably be a year, maybe a year and a half, before everything is top notch again.
All right.
Because they have to. Well, it might take up to that time. Because they will start up one system, make sure that it's completely running fine, then start up another system. Now, slowly but surely, each little system will be started up on its own. And they'll be able to start gathering everything together. So before they can actually start operating again. Now, we've got some. There might be a couple more. I mean, they'll do some more swapping out of parts, but right now it'll be, like cables and things like that. So it'll be minor things as they go along. But they were able to make a complete upgrade to the control system, which will, to the systems that actually, to the main computer systems. They had. So they're starting up the first accelerator here very soon, and after that they'll start essentially hitting up each of the different systems as they, because you have to speed up the electrons so much, the protons. So they'll, start up the first gear, then start up the second gear, and kind of keep going as to that goes on.
Oh, okay, I see. And work on each stage.
Yep.
Very good, Heather. All right. Well, are you ready to go do a Mars Curiosity update up on Mars?
Let's go.
And liftoff of the Atlas V with Curiosity.
Touchdown confirmed. You're safe on Mars.
Look at that wheel. All right, Heather, what is that little rover up to? Or I shouldn't say that. Pretty, actually, decently sized rover up there.
Yeah. It's kind of big.
Yeah.
But last week, right at the last minute, there was, I'm not sure I was able to talk about it inside the show, but there was a glint off a rock in one of the images. Now, in the thousands of images they've actually received, they have these that are bright spots about every week. Now, oftentimes they write it off to cosmic rays, literally hitting at the CCD.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they look at the left eye image and the right eye image of the, of the mast cam. And they're able to see, hey, these are taken in very similar time frame. One eye sees it, one eye doesn't. It's possible that that little bit of an angle hides it hiding behind something, but probably just a, cosmic ray blip of the CCD. Otherwise, they are hanging out at their current position, and they reached that point last week. They're kind of still surveying all the different rocks in the area. This is called Kimberly, where there's a number of different interesting rocks and strata going on. So they're hoping that they'll be able to do they'll take a couple other weeks for observations, then they'll start into sample drilling and onboard laboratory analysis. So we're heading into another little next month or two. Might be
slow on the news because it's going to be doing...
No. We'll have a slow, maybe next 2 weeks.
Oh, only a week?
As they prep.
Oh.
And then my guess is then they'll start, taking pictures and drilling and
good.
have a nice little flurry of
new updates.
Excitement.
I like that. That's way better than what I was thinking. All right, Heather, we'll jump in now. I got to warn you, this is the old time machine. I brought it back out. I filled it up. Here we go. Oh, boy. Oh, man, it shakes like a mother. All right, here we go. You can tell it's a bumpy ride, too. 439 years ago, April 22nd, 1575. Heather, what happened this week in science?
Surgery book. The printing of Ambrose Paré's book of... It was completed. It was published, and it was really opposed to the established physicians, because previous books on surgery had, had been talking about how to treat gunshot wounds with cauterization, which essentially is, hot irons and boiling water. And he actually kind of reintroduced the idea of ligature, where, you're tying off the bleeding instead. And he kind of improved midwife techniques. And he kind of gathered all of this together into some new volume, which he really spread throughout the world. Now, what made it extremely interesting and useful was that most of the, top-notch surgeons had these books, but they were all in Latin, which meant he didn't particularly read Latin very well, and there were a lot of, country... regular barber surgeons, they called them, who were unable to interpret Latin. And so he printed it all in French, which meant that it really got a lot of this data and how-tos, and he invented some ideas for prostheses. He was a really interesting physician. He was, known as one of the greater surgeons of the European Renaissance. And so he did a lot of different things, but it was this week when he was actually able to print a surgery book, actually in print for a century. It ended up being about 13 editions. Wow. But it was in French, which made it accessible to the medical, people of the world that could not read Latin. And
there you go, 439 years ago. That's kind of amazing when you think about it. Right, I'm recalibrating the SciByte 2000 so we can look up into the sky this week.
Alrighty, we have Venus, our morning star still. You'll see it in early dawn to the east to southeast. Mars, you can see at twilight. We just passed opposition last week, so this is going to be an all-night affair for Mars. It's going to be rising in the southeast with the blue-white star Spica, about 3 to 4 finger widths away from it. They will be at their highest point around 1 a.m., and then going towards the northwest as morning proceeds. Jupiter!
Hey! Wait. There it is.
Hey! It's going to be at twilight. It's going to be high in the southeast, crossing mostly overhead about 9 to 8 a.m. for mid-northern latitudes. Okay. And it'll be setting in the west around 2 a.m. Saturn rises about 9 or 10 p.m. It's going to be in the highest point in the south by about 3 a.m. And by then, it'll be way to the far left of Mars and Spica. But in the morning, we've got Venus in the southeast. In the twilight, we've got Jupiter over in the southeast. Otherwise, Mars is our up-all-night fella this week.
Nice.
Rising in the southeast and setting in the northwest.
That's a pretty good. That's a great sky, and of course, like always, it's all listed at the bottom of the show notes. Just go over to JupiterBroadcasting.com, look for episode 126 of the SciByte program, and then everything's pretty much listed in the chronological order we went through the show. But specifically, the looking up at the sky is right there at the end. And guess what? It's responsive design, so it works on your smartphone. How about that? All right, Heather. Well, is there anything else we wanted to cover this week?
Not that I can think of.
All right, very good. Well, I'd like to remind you guys that you can always join us live on a Tuesday over at jblive.tv. We do it at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. You can get that in your local time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. All right, Heather. Well, thank you for the great show.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning this week's episode of SciByte. Go grab yourself an RSS feed and get it weekly, and we'll see you right back here next week.